Report. I'm Fareed Zakaria. We'll begin today's show with the current National Security Advisor, Ambassador Susan Rice, on the fight against ISIS, the civil war in Syria, on the new Cold War with Russia, and on the next administration. What are the biggest challenges facing Donald J. Trump?
The weight of United States leadership, the responsibilities of office are quite serious and sobering things.
Then, global warming. Trump had said it was a hoax. Now he might be changing his mind. Most scientists say it's very real. And this billionaire businessman says he's opening his checkbook to stop any plan to roll back progress on climate change. Meet Tom Steyer. Also, all work and no play, that's no good. Stephen Johnson will tell us just how important it is to have a little fun in our lives. But first, here's my take. So Donald Trump now says in an interview with the New York Times that he believes there is some connection between human activity and climate change, that Hillary Clinton should not be prosecuted, and that after one conversation with retired Marine Corps General James Mattis, Trump changed his tune a bit about waterboarding. One might wonder why he didn't have that conversation during the campaign, or why he pounded home the opposite view on all these topics for a year and a half, but at this point, it doesn't matter. Trump is president-elect. We should all hope that he flip-flops some more. In this spirit, let me outline a few news stories that I hope we will see over the next few weeks. Donald Trump wants to keep Iran deal. The president-elect has come to realize that the agreement with Iran has blocked that country's pathways to a nuclear weapon. Furthermore, were the U.S. to pull out, no other country would reimpose sanctions, so it would simply hurt American business. I hadn't focused so much on the benefits of the deal, Trump said. We have been bombing the hell out of ISIS, says Trump. The president-elect described a phone conversation with President Obama in which he learned that the United States and its coalition partners have conducted more than 16,000 airstrikes on ISIS. That's a lot, says Trump, noting that in Syria, the Obama administration has been focused on defeating ISIS and not on deposing President Bashar al-Assad. They've been doing what I suggested all along, he noted proudly. Trump Care will be a terrific improvement on Obamacare. The Trump administration plans to propose a health care bill that will require insurance companies to enroll people with pre-existing conditions. In return, the companies will gain millions of new customers, since people will now face a mandate to buy health insurance or else face a $10,000 fine, much higher than under Obamacare. I figured out, like with houses or cars, insurance can't work unless we're all in, the president-elect explained. Donald Trump announces sale of the Trump Organization. The president-elect said that he has decided that people deserve a full-time president without even the hints of conflict of interest. And so he's decided to sell all his companies, put the proceeds in a multi-billion-dollar charitable trust, and ask his children to run it. If they want to get back into business, I will give them each a small few $1,000,000 loan to get started, just like my father gave me. Okay, that last one is total fantasy. On the others, I don't know if they'll happen, but if they do, great. I know that there are many people who oppose Trump's election and who want him to fail. I don't. It's much better for the country and the world if Trump does well in the White House. That is not normalizing him, as some worry, but recognizing that the situation is what it is, and hoping for the best. When Trump does do things I disagree with, I will protest. For example, his refusal to properly separate himself from his businesses is truly unconscionable, and it makes this country look like a banana republic. But if he ends up doing things that are sensible, I will cheer. Trump has a unique opportunity. A vast number of Americans are deeply distrustful of elites in Washington and New York and elsewhere. They believe that there are simple solutions to the problems that America faces, and they resent the country's engagement with the world, which they see as harming the average American. These people have put their faith in Donald Trump. If Trump can help make them understand some of the realities of the world and the constraints on government, it would be a huge step forward. If Donald Trump tells his followers that the Paris Agreement on climate change is worth preserving, or that NATO is crucial for global stability, they might actually listen. For more, go to cnn.com/Fareed and read my Washington Post column this week. And let's get started. This week, I traveled to D.C. to interview President Obama's National Security Advisor, Susan Rice. There are just 55 days until the next president is inaugurated. In the meantime, there is plenty to keep Ambassador Rice busy around the world, including the transition. Listen in. Ambassador Rice, pleasure to have you on.
It's good to be back, Fareed.
Where do we stand in the battle against ISIS? How much further before, in your view, Mosul falls and then Raqqa falls?
Well, let me take a second to describe the progress that's been made. The Iraqi security forces inside of Iraq have taken back about 55% of the populated territory that ISIL originally seized back in 2014. They have now, with our support and that of our 68-country coalition, encircled Mosul, and they're beginning to move into parts of Mosul. This is going to be a very difficult fight. ISIL has been entrenched there for several years now. They've built up very significant defenses, and so we can't expect that to be quick and easy, but I believe that in due time that will succeed, and we are working very assiduously to support the Iraqi security forces as they do that. In Raqqa, in Syria, the aim is to begin the process of isolating and ultimately seizing Raqqa. The isolation phase has begun recently. We are supporting that again with our coalition partners. This is a complicated endeavor because the force that is best capable of conducting the isolation consists not only of Syrian Arabs, but also of Syrian Kurds. And Raqqa will need to be ultimately taken by Syrian Arabs who would be more accepted by the population in Raqqa. But that isolation phase has begun, and doing these two things simultaneously in Mosul and Raqqa is designed to put pressure from multiple angles on ISIL simultaneously.
Is Russia fighting ISIS and fighting Islamic terrorists in Syria?
Only on the margins. It is not. It is the case that they've taken some strikes against ISIL, that they've taken some strikes where they claim to be al-Qaeda, but their business is quite clear. It's to prop up Assad, and it's to wipe out the opposition, most of which are moderate opposition, not extremist opposition. They claim to have a shared interest, as we do, in defeating ISIL, and I think they do have that interest as a secondary interest because their proximity to Syria and the risk that Chechens and others who have come to fight inside of Syria would come back into Russian territory. But if you look at how they have devoted their effort and resources, it has been predominantly to back Assad, go after the opposition indiscriminately, in large numbers the moderate opposition, and to a lesser extent to deal with ISIL.
You have been in on almost all of President Obama's meetings with Putin. There are famous shots of just the three of you, the four of you with a translator. What is it you think that Vladimir Putin wants? What are his goals for Russia?
Well, I think Putin's primary goal is to see Russia ascendant as a global power and Russian pride and nationalism to be restored. Putin, as you know, is a former KGB. He very much lamented the fall of the Soviet Union and the period that Russia went through when it was economically and politically much weaker. And I think he views his mandate and his purpose is to restore Russian glory, and to do so at the expense of international law and norms when it serves his purpose.
What would happen if the United States were to slap 45% tariffs on China or label it a currency manipulator? You've dealt with the Chinese.
Well, Fareed, first of all, let's deal with the 45% tariff suggestion. The Chinese have made very clear, including in U.S. bilateral discussions and in President Obama's meeting with President Xi just the other day, that they don't seek a trade war with the United States. They seek, to use their term, win-win cooperation in the economic sphere and the security sphere, even as we have to deal with real differences we have between us. But President Xi was also very clear that, that China has its own very significant economic interests, and if there were an action directed against China and its interests in the economic sphere, there would be an equal reaction. And so this could very well be the beginning of a significant trade war, if that were in fact pursued, that could have very serious ramifications for the global economy.
Similarly, what happens if the president were to decide that he wanted to tear up NAFTA or renegotiate it?
Well, Fareed, I don't want to go through every one of these what-ifs, because they are what-ifs. And I think we need to understand that campaigns are campaigns and governing is governing, and they're very different things. And the weight of United States leadership, the responsibilities of office, are quite serious and sobering things. And I think we need to allow the President-elect time to put his team together, to formulate his policies, and see what, in fact, those policies prove to be.
And we will be back in a second, much more with National Security Advisor Susan Rice.